Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my dear teachers and educators. Today, we have the next episode of In Conversation With, and our guest today is Deeptha Vivekanand. She is a teacher, a storyteller from the St. Kabir School in Chandigarh. And there is an interesting story of how she became a storyteller and a teacher. Also, she is one of the top four of Know It All World Teachers Quiz. Hi, Deeptha. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Rashmi. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's get straight into the chat today. And tell me first about your journey of being a teacher. How did it really happen?
Well, I never really set out to becoming a teacher in a school. Although, I must say that, I've had the influence of a teacher around me. My grandmother was a teacher and a principal of schools. So I grew up with her and under her influence. So that was always there at the back of, my mind, but I never really wanted to become a teacher or anything like that. I come from a background in corporate learning and development. So my last assignment was with Wipro Technologies and HCL before that. So I spent about close to 8 to 10 years in the corporate space, doing, communication skills and behavioral skills training. And storytelling happened as an extension of that, really. So when I was, trying to look for various ways in which I could, make my classes more interesting, and I was looking for various other methodologies to incorporate within the teaching learning environment, is when I stumbled upon storytelling, literally. And the more I, got to know about it, and the more I read, I realized that it's an area of specialization in itself, and it was just so fascinating for me. And like I said, because I grew up with my grandmother, who would always tell me stories. Like I can't remember a day that didn't go past when I didn't listen to a story from her, till the day she died, actually. So all of that just sort of, I think just connected all the dots, and I decided to put my corporate career aside and dive deeper into the world of storytelling. And education happened as an extension of my work in the storytelling space, because one of the first things that you do in storytelling is to start working with children, and it's like this default setting, right? So that's how my foray into school education came to be. And then slowly I started working with teachers, training them on storytelling. Of course, I myself did workshops and a couple of courses and so on. So then once all of that fell in place, I set up my own storytelling venture in 2013, through which, I was doing programs, I was doing workshops. I was also getting back to doing corporate workshops, but using storytelling as the methodology. So yeah, so long story short, from corporate learning and development to storytelling in the education space.
That's really lovely. That's a very nice story. And I think it sort of sounds like storytelling chose you, or your career, that the profession that you've chosen now has chosen you, than you actually, going ahead with it. And what's really nice is, and what I think all of us need to understand, not only other teachers or other students, but all of us need to understand that we need to have the courage to choose, or go ahead with whatever it is that we love doing, the passion. That is what is most important. And I think that is the learning that we get out of this story of yours. And I must tell you, you definitely should write about this, create a story and tell it to your students, especially when they if you have a career counseling sort of a session with your students, you must talk to them about this. I think it will make a huge impact, especially knowing that the lady, the teacher whom they are speaking to herself, has been through something like this. I think
Right.
that will really make an impact. So I shall follow up with you. I really hope you do this. You do write this story about yourself.
I will. Thanks. Yeah, the storyteller
All
story.
right. Yes, you must do that. All right. So the next question here: how did quizzing happen?
Okay, wow, that's also a fairly interesting story. Quizzing started right when I was a kid. And, as I grew up in Madras, which is now Chennai, and anybody who went to a school in Madras was exposed to quizzing at some level or the other. Like even a really small school would have its own, quiz show. And I think that was also, that had a lot to do with the fact that there was a lot of quizzing on television. Radio before that, there was the Bonvita quiz contest that used to run on radio, which we used to listen to religiously every Sunday afternoon, I remember. And then once it moved to TV, that was like the thing to do. And my dad was and still is very interested in quizzing. He himself has quizzed a lot. So it was really his interest and passion in quizzing that rubbed off on me as well. So he would take me to the Quiz Foundation of India's open houses on Sundays. It used to happen at one of the colleges in the city. So we would just go and, be a part of that large crowd of people who would have gathered to just come and just sort of soak up this, the quizzing experience. Whether you knew the answers to the questions or not was not important, but just to be able to listen to those questions and, think about how these connections are made. And so it just, it set your mind thinking. So that was a big influence. And of course, shows like What's the Good Word, Alpha Plus, and then later on Mastermind. And since my dad was also in advertising, the brand equity quiz was a big thing. So, quizzing's always been a part of my life. And I think sort of dropped the ball once I started working and got busy with various other things, until, I joined the school. And quizzing and storytelling, for me, they go together. So when I started storytelling is when I would also start thinking about how things connect up in stories, right? A story could be about math, it could be about language, it could be about science, and all of these things get integrated. And that's really how quizzing works as well. It's not just a straight answer to a question, right? So that's, and I got back in touch with my quizzing because of the know-it-all quiz that I had a chance to be a part of. And I'm just so glad that I'm back in the quizzing space, so to speak. Yeah.
So will we be seeing you at more quizzes from now on?
I hope so. I certainly do want to. So I'm following a lot more quizzes now. And yeah, I'm waiting for the next notification.
All right, great, lovely. So tell me, what is it that you love about your profession the most?
Well, I do love telling stories. That's certainly something I enjoy. But I also thoroughly enjoy the research work that goes behind, telling a story. So it's not like you read a story and you decide that, okay, this is a story I'm going to tell. One has to go through several stories to find that one story that really connects to you, and you feel like saying, it's like you said before, the story chooses the storyteller, right? So that's a moment that is true for every storyteller in the world. So it's not just that. From that point on is when your relationship with that story begins. Then you start really getting into the story. You start peeling its layers. You try to understand the culture from where the story comes from. If it's a traditional story, then you start to understand all the various, the layers in the story. So there's a lot of research work that goes behind storytelling, which is not something you see. When you go to a storytelling performance, you just look at the storyteller and you listen to the story and you come back. But that storyteller has a very deep relationship with the story that he or she has chosen to share that day. And that has its, roots in hours and hours and hours of research and practice. So I think it's the groundwork that I enjoy the most. Yeah.
So I think it's safe to say that you're a fellow bookworm, because my entire team is going to be very happy about finding someone who's just exactly like us.
Absolutely, because the internet is not really the go-to source for a storyteller. Anybody would tell you that. Although there are a lot of authentic sources available, but it also depends on the kind of stories that you are drawn to. I generally choose a lot of folklore and legend and myth. So those stories are more available in books and in collections by anthropologists and folklorists and so on. So to me, those are the collections that are my sources, right? And not so much the internet, because just because something's on the internet, it's not true, it's not authentic. So when something is in a book, definitely there's a lot more credibility to that, to that story. So at any given point in time, I have to refer to at least 2-3 sources of that story to see all the kinds of versions that are available, and then try to tell it in a way that makes sense to me. So yeah, books are all over the place.
You know what's amazing? Something that I notice or observe about you is that you love doing what you do. The way you explained on how you do your research and how you really get into your books, and you spoke about the storytelling performance and the connection between the storyteller and the story. I think it's amazing how passionate you are and how deeply connected you are to your profession of being a storyteller. And what's amazing, and this is something I would like to tell all our viewers as well, that we need to note here that she actually had a corporate career for over 8 years. It was not something you did for like a year or two and then found your calling. No, you were in it for 8 years. And it was not like you were doing a bad job or you were not really, doing very badly at work. You were doing really well. But then you still had you stumbled upon storytelling and you had the courage to take the decision to get out of it, start a venture of your own, and then again have the courage of moving to a whole different place and joining a school. I mean, I think that's amazing on what you have done. And all of that revolves around the connection you have with your profession. That I think is amazing, that's come out from the entire story that you told us right now. All right. So the lady who created the World Teachers Quiz, Mrs. Rama Ranganathan, she always makes a statement. She says, us teachers, especially teachers, we have to keep the child in us alive. So what would you say about that?
Well, that's true for everybody. Anybody who's an adult needs to keep the child in them alive. It's like a psychologist would tell you that there are 3 ego states, right? There's the child ego, there's the parent ego, and the adult ego. So, and it's very interesting to see how these 3 ego states play out in people's interactions. And many times you will also hear people saying, go to your child ego state and be in that experience and try to be or respond to the situation like a child would, which we definitely lose touch with as we grow older. And things like quizzing or taking part in any kind of activity that is away from your usual the rigmarole that you go through every day certainly helps you to just stay in touch with the lighter side of things, and just be in the moment, because that's what children do. For children, it's always about enjoying this moment for what it is, experiencing the here and the now, and then moving on to something else. So I think teachers definitely need to do that, and because then that just helps them connect better with their own children, right? You think like a child because you're with children all the time. You can't be this boring adult who is just stayed and comes to class and does his or her job and goes away. So you've got to fool around a little bit. You've got to do these, make these silly faces. And I think storytelling helps me do that a lot, because once, if I'm doing the character of a monkey, then I have to become the monkey, and kids enjoy seeing that. And because to them it's like this adult who is otherwise in this position of authority, but suddenly is also doing things that make us laugh, that make us entertained. So yeah, I think storytelling is something that all teachers should do along with quizzing, to be in touch with the child in them.
All right. So question here,
Yeah.
storytelling or quizzing, if you had a choice?
Well, I'd say storytelling because it helps me quiz as well, because I'll have to be in the company of books, and quizzing will become an offshoot of that. So, yeah.
I have one question for you here. I have seen many storytellers who have told me that they dress up as well when they, have the storytelling, especially for the children. I mean, I'm not talking about an adult, group of people where you're just having a storytelling session. No, I'm talking about children. And they've told me that they dress up, and I've seen photographs where they dress up as the character, and they're completely into it. Do you do something like that in your school?
I don't. I might wear the odd, let's say, the headband with. I do a story about a cockroach where I wear an antler. I mean, a pair of antlers once in a. I mean, antenna. Sorry, once in a while, or maybe a pig's nose or something like that. But that's only if the story warrants it, and not otherwise. I'm not big on props and or puppets or anything like that. So I generally like to stay with the story, and I use a lot of voices, and just the language, the words, the voices, and expressions. That's what I really enjoy.
Okay, all right. So tell me something. Now you've been through this entire quizzing experience again. After how many years did you come back to quizzing?
Oh, the last I quizzed seriously, I think, was in college. So easily 20 years.
Wow. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So you have to quiz more.
Yeah.
That's the first point here.
Yes.
Second point. Can you tell us on why you think it is really important for teachers especially to involve themselves in such activities? Quizzing may be one, it can be anything else. It can be a storytelling contest or a story writing contest, a poetry, or something to do with art, painting. Why is it really important for teachers to do that?
So, I mean, I think everybody knows now that teaching is as high pressure a job as is anything else in the world, right? Because you're constantly dealing with personalities of different sorts. No 2 days are ever the same. I mean, you're not the same teacher in the next day in the same class, right? And today the environment has changed drastically. Teachers have had absolutely no time to adapt. It's practically been overnight, and since now everything's moved to the virtual medium, the stress levels are a lot higher. I mean, every teacher that you meet will tell you that they're doing a lot more work than they would do if things were normal. um, so teaching is not a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 3 job anymore. Gone are the days when people would say that oh, it's an ideal job for a woman, especially because she can go with the child and come back with the child. So no, it's as stressful as a corporate job. So just like you tell corporate employees to take a break and go play a sport, or do something that exercises the mind, listen to a song, or go and hang out with friends in the evening, the same rules apply to teachers as well. Why should they be an exception? And especially something like quizzing helps you also, although it may be considered a slightly academic activity. um, what it does, it just opens up your vision so much more, because you look at the world through multiple angles, and it helps you bring in that worldview into your classroom. You never know when a question that you may have heard in a quiz will strike you when you're actually teaching a class, and you can bring that in as a little point. You see, just as a like a pop quiz, or just as a fun fact maybe. So keeping in touch with something like quizzing helps you open yourself up to what's happening in the world. These really obscure thoughts and these points that that might strike you as a moment of inspiration. So yes, I mean, quizzing is all about keeping yourself up to date, and that just makes you a more effective teacher.
I do agree. There is something that I have noticed with quizzing. quizzing or any knowledge sport, let me put it that way, as even if you're debating, or if you're an orator, you have to prepare, right? You have to do your research.
Yeah.
So what I've observed is, when you do such things, when you have such hobbies, you end up having a better conversational ability.
Yes.
I've seen that. Otherwise, the conversations people usually have are very superficial. But when you know something concrete and you've done your research, your conversation have way more meaning to it. It's way more in depth. And I've seen there is something really that comes out of a conversation. I have seen that happen in children or in adults. I've seen that both ways actually. Would you have noticed a similar pattern?
Yeah, absolutely. See, as a teacher, today you cannot be just that person who talks about what's in the textbook and hope to be an engaging teacher, right? Because today children want to connect with you as a human being, as an individual. And so let's say we're watching, it's IPL season now, and I'm sure everybody's watching. So if you can actually start your class with by saying, "Oh, did you see that catch by Glenn Maxwell? It was beyond brilliant." Immediately children see you very differently. Or if you talk to them about a song that you listened to and it made you, it made you think of some things. And you just share that with them. It may not have anything to do with your class. You may be a math teacher. You may still be interested in music. So that's the thing. I think being a person with varied interests is very, very, very important. And that's what adds multiple dimensions to your personality, like you said, and makes you a great conversationalist. And especially when you're in the company of children, you want to inspire them, you want to motivate them, you want to direct their attention to various things that are a lot more important than what's in the textbook. Really, that's not life, right? So if teachers can find a way to do that, because I always believe, if you have to be if someone has to be interested in you, you have to be interesting. So how would
That's a nice line. That's a very good line. If someone has to be
yeah.
interested in you, you need to be interesting.
Yeah.
That's a really good line. You're absolutely right about how even a math teacher can open a class with something as completely unrelated to her subject, like IPL. It's absolutely something that will definitely work in classrooms. When I do my training sessions with teachers, I end up telling them, enter the class, go to your class, and okay, you're done with your attendance, and just talk to them about social media. Tell them what they saw on Facebook or Instagram or somewhere that was very interesting, or just give them a fact about, I don't know, Facebook, on why Facebook is blue. I mean, tell them about those things. It'll catch them off guard, but they will
Yeah.
also suddenly realize that their teacher is cool. And
Absolutely.
suddenly
Yeah.
they feel a connect towards the teacher. They suddenly feel the teacher is relevant. And the
Yes.
teacher is in the same zone that we are. It's not like, okay, the teachers is in some 80s or something like that, and we are not. I mean, we are very relevant and very current. They don't feel that gap anymore. So
True.
we encourage the same as well. It's wonderful that you experience the same in the class. That's really great. All right. So one last thing. Would be your message to all the teachers and educators out there?
Wow. Okay. I haven't been in the profession for too long for me to give out some kind of a serious message, but I would just tell them to, just learn to let go and be yourself, let down your guard, and thoroughly just enjoy what you're doing and engage with the kids like you would do with kids. Be a child in front of the children. Yeah. And that's it. That's all that's needed. The subject and the learning will take care of itself.
Right. Keep the child in your life.
Yeah.
That matters the most.
Yeah.
All right. So before we end, since you're a storyteller, I have a story creation game. Let's call it the story creation game. I just thought we'll just make it a little interesting here today. So this is called a three-word story. The game is called three-word story. Of course, the actual game has something to do with a secret word and things like that, but we'll play it plain and simple, straightforward. So it's very simple. I start with 3 words. I can only say 3 words, and you say the next 3 words. Both of us are allowed to only say 3 words. We'll play this for about, say, 45 seconds to a minute.
Okay.
And we basically weave a story. That's what we will do.
Right.
All right. Okay. So let me just get my watch right here. Okay, fine. I'm starting the game. A little girl
Threw a ball.
to her friend.
Who was crying?
She wondered why.
She went next.
Okay, I need a second.
Continue it now.
Yes. Okay. She lost a toy.
Oh, don't worry.
We'll find it.
Here's a ball.
We can play.
But I want.
My lost toy.
What was it?
It was a monkey.
Is that it?
No, that's not the one. Sorry, too many words.
Yeah. This is quite challenging.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. Okay, I'm going to skip no. That's not it.
Where were you?
In my room.
Let's go there.
And do what?
Look for it.
But it ain't there.
Let me check.
Are you sure?
Let's try once.
Okay, let's go.
So they went.
And they searched.
And it was
under her bed.
I told you.
But I looked.
But did you really see? That's too many words.
Too many words.
Did you really?
I think so.
Things hide. No, this is going to be too long. It happens sometimes.
I wonder why.
Doesn't matter.
2 words. You need to give me one more.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Okay, okay. You are right.
Let's go play.
All right, let's go. Okay, as
right.
fun as that was, I think that it's really difficult to play this game. I've been trying this, and you even if you love stories, you're an author, you're a storyteller, you end up thinking, and you need to think on your feet, right?
Yeah.
And the limitation of 3 words that really gets you thinking. I mean, I really liked the game, so I thought I must try it with you.
Yeah, it's a good mind bender.
Right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so as much. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the mystery with the missing monkey that we just solved.
Just under her bed, and she just didn't see it. Yeah, but it happens, right? Sometimes things are right there where we want it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for being with us, Deeptha. I think most of all, I loved the game that we played at the end. But it was
Thanks.
it was lovely having you here with us
Thank you
today.
so much. Yeah,
Thank
it
you for
was
making
wonderful.
time out. I understand the amount of pressure all of you are in right now, but you really took the time out for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
So, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear teachers, educators, there you are, Miss Deeptha Vivekanand from Saint Kabir School, Chandigarh, the storyteller and the Know It All World Teachers Quiz finalist. That was her story. You keep watching this space. We have many more interesting stories coming up for you. Stay safe and come back.